Okay, welcome everybody. We'll be getting kicked off here in about 1 minute. We have about 90 seconds to go, so please hang in there with me. I've got a few little items I've got to do here to share and get this thing into our group and everything. Here it is. Okay, let's double check. Okay, looks good so far. Welcome everybody. We'll be getting kicked off here in just a moment. We have about 30 seconds left. Make sure we get everybody in here. By the way, just for your information, we are actually live on YouTube now as well. I know a bunch of people have been kind of asking about that. We're on the Atlas Martial Arts Software channel on YouTube right now. So if you do happen to be, perusing the YouTubes, you should be able to find us there. Let's double check and make sure that our group is with us as well here. We have a few constituencies that we visit with during these sessions. Okay, good. Let's see if I have volume. I do. All right. So it looks like all the technical craziness is working. We're using some new tools here to help us accomplish our mission for today. Let's see here. Let me double check and make sure that this is working. Yeah, looks good. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks again so much for taking this time out of your day to work on your business instead of just working in your business. Today we have a lot to talk about. We're talking about sort of how to end the year on kind of a high note. Really, it's more about, for me, it's more about kind of like resetting, right? Hitting the reset button. And we're going to talk a lot about that today. And I think that's a very useful habit to build. Starting from ground zero, starting from zero, is really sort of a powerful way to relook at everything, right? To kind of relook at yourself and relook at the team and relook at the business. And oftentimes we just get so busy in the morass of day-to-day operations, right? It becomes very difficult to do that. Do keep in mind, I do have the chat running. So if you're on YouTube or if you're on Facebook, you can chat with us, ask any questions that you might have, or make any comments. If you can't hear me very well, if you can hear okay, you might put a little comment in there and let me know you can hear me okay. Sometimes the audio is a little challenging, but let's talk through a couple of items as we begin here in earnest. So again, this is sort of like the reset button, right? Remember the live chat is over there. If you do have any questions, please chat with us there. Also, if you'd like the slides from today's presentation, I always make those available. Just pop your email address in the chat area, either in YouTube or on Facebook, and I'll make sure my team kind of keeps an eye out for that, and they send you those slides. That way they'll be able to get them to the right person. Also, if you have any questions or comments about today's session or today's time, I'd love to hear that in the chat area as well. I'll keep my eye on that so we can monitor that. Also, if you have any end of the year strategies that are particularly useful, right? If you have I don't know. Today we're going to talk about a few of my personal end of the year like rituals, right? I have a small number of things that I like to do at the end of every year to really give me a mental reset and to give me sort of speed into the new year, so to speak. So we'll be talking about a little bit of that, but whatever strategies or rituals or items that you like to accomplish at the end of the year here in the last couple of weeks. Most of us, the schools will be closed for a week or two, a few days at least. And, how do we leverage that time best, right? What are you doing that helps fill your gas tank, right? So that's what we're kind of talking about today. And I'd love to hear your ideas on that. Also, I always come bearing gifts. So first, remember that the new issue of Martial Arts World News magazine is out. If you go to martialartsworldnews.com, you can get a copy of that. You can read it online. You can also subscribe for free. We have an incredible faculty of contributors that help us with Martial Arts World News magazine every year. So it's really, really very, very, very cool and useful. Also, you can download the free Martial Arts World News magazine mobile application. If you go to your relative app store, either Android or Apple, you can find it there as well. And that updates, by the way, I think it's 2 or 3 times a day we have new content that gets posted on there. So very useful, I think, for school operators and instructors. Also, I'm very kind of proud to announce that started launching in January, we'll be launching our new Atlas Member Direct mobile application for our Atlas Martial Arts software users. This application, though, actually is for your students. This is a communication chat application and school information app that you can use for your students to create instant, real-time chat, share updates, share what's happening in the school, things like this. We're very excited about how that looks and how it's working right now. It's inside of Atlas Martial Arts software. You'll have the ability to chat directly back and forth between the school and the students, and you'll have the chance to be able to chat with them directly on your cell phone as well. So pretty cool. It's coming very soon in January here, so stay tuned for that. We're all really excited about that, and I'll be happy to walk you through some features here before too long. So the 6 elements that we're going to talk about today, there's sort of 6 kind of big components that I wanted to kind of walk through, and I really am interested in your feedback. So do keep an eye, please. If you do have any feedback or thoughts about how you tend to invest time at the end of the year to sort of wrap the year up well and set the stage for the new year. So if you do have any strategies on that, pop them in the chat area. I'd love to have a little discussion over there with everybody. So number 1, I think celebrate. I think it is very important and very useful. I think we all get buried in the day-to-day, right? It's so easy to get sucked into and to be consumed by, just every little operational detail, right? Every enrollment conference, every intro, every student that drops out, every issue that a parent or a student has with a staff member or with a class or something like that. We tend to get sort of mired in the minutia, right? And we get sort of blinded by the day-to-day, and it helps us to reset, I think, a little bit, to really recognize the things that went well, right? To really celebrate, the team and everything else. So I think celebrating with students, staff, partners, families, I think it's incredibly important. We should take time to do this more often. But certainly now at the end of the year is a wonderful time to do that. Remember that, I think a key component to remember is that, people enroll in martial arts schools for some reasons, right? Maybe they have, maybe the parent detects some sort of a confidence issue or a self-esteem issue or something like that, and they want to get out in front of that. Or maybe there's just some entertainment value, or maybe there's social value, or maybe there's, whatever, right? People enroll for different reasons. And what's interesting about all programs that stretch over long terms, right? Typically over months and certainly over years and years in many cases. The reason, if you go back and survey, and I've done this many times, right? If you go back and survey your students and you ask them, what are the main reasons that they love coming to class, right? Almost never will they say things like, oh, well, I really love practicing, my 3rd basic movement form, every week, right? They very rarely will say things like, the curriculum is great, or I really love to use the nunchucks, or I really love the long staff, or whatever. Sometimes, but usually what you'll hear, the commonalities that you'll hear are community related, right? They have a peer group there. They have a friend group there. They have people that are on the same mission as them and who are, goal setters and goal attainers, and they really love that community or those surroundings for their family and for their children, right? So these social community connections are really the thing that really holds these types of schools together, holds these types of businesses together. I actually just saw a post on Facebook today, in fact, and I prepared this PowerPoint way ahead of time. But I actually just saw a post today from a very traditional Karate Do school that said, this isn't a place for socialization or for making friends. This is a place to train and to train hard, right? And I do agree with a lot of that sentiment. Pardon me, my allergies are just killing me today. I do agree that this is a place to train and train hard, and we really are interested in really good quality outcomes for our students. But I think what they're missing in that post is the idea in the sense that the social connections is really the fabric that keeps people training for long term, right? If you're only there for physical training, right, then you lose the 10 pounds you wanted to lose and you drop out, right? Or you gain the flexibility that you wanted to gain, and why should you stay, right? So anyway, my point here is I think it's very important for us to celebrate, and part of that is about building community. So think about ways that you can celebrate accomplishments in the school, accomplishments with your instructors, accomplishments of your students in such a way that creates community and togetherness, right? I've told this story a million times before, and I'll probably, tell it again. But, if you think back to your own training, what are the things that you really remember the most, right? I don't really remember doing the fourth form the 362nd time, right? But I do remember the first time I was invited to go out to to the movies with the brown belts, right? Or, things like that, right? Or I do remember very vividly the first Christmas party I was invited to. The first Christmas, kind of a Christmas banquet, right? So a bunch of the students and families and stuff got together for a Christmas banquet. I remember the first one of those I ever attended. That was really exciting and an incredible experience, right? I was very young, but still, it was, I still remember that, right? So those are the types of things that you remember. So we want to create those types of things. We want to be in the business of creating memories, right? And you either do it unintentionally or you do it intentionally. Right? And I like to be very intentional about it. I like to think about the types of memories I want to create and then build systems to do that, right? So just think about that, right? How can you celebrate with, students, staff, partners, families, and of course personally as well, but in what ways can you build community around that? For example, the end of the year Christmas gala, whatever that might be. We typically do like a big black belt extravaganza around the end of the year, big banquet, celebration. It's sort of an honor of the final black belt testing for the year. And we sort of do an award ceremony, things like this. But the point, the actual detail I don't think is the higher order element here. The higher order element here is what kind of culture do you have in your school? And how can you create events? They don't necessarily have to be inside the school. How can you create touch points that help solidify that culture and that community, right? So think about that. I think it's really critically important that we create systems like that. Number 2. So that was number 1, celebrate. Number 2 is reward, right? We all do this. We all operate martial arts schools and run martial arts schools and teach martial arts for reasons other than just making money, right? Pardon me. We could all probably make more money doing other things, right? But to our staff, we have, I think, a duty and a responsibility to be building a career path for them and a career ladder for them that they can really accomplish their goals and objectives that might even be higher than they can even see right now, right? My objective, my goal for all of my team is I really want to see them become independent, become wealthy, be able to be, communicators and leaders of humans, and live a life of abundance for the rest of their life, right? And be able to take care of their family and their posterity. So how can I do that, right? So first, of course, I think the question is, do you really care? Do you really care about your team, right? And the team really is everything, right? The team runs the business, right? I know there are a lot of single sole owner operators in our community, of course, in which case you're the team. So, how much do you really care about yourself, right? You have to be thoughtful about that. But I think it's very important to take this time to reward staff and reward them well. And that doesn't always necessarily mean it's got to be money, right? But here are some ideas and some thoughts I think that you should be thinking about when you think about rewarding performance or rewarding staff. Personal gifts I think are very important, very useful. I'm a huge fan, frankly, of I like to give books as gifts. I love books. When I started businesses, I was forced to read a lot, forced to consume a lot. Like I had to learn about incorporation and the difference between a C Corp and S Corp and an LLC. I had to learn about, business law. I had to learn about all these different things. And it was so fascinating to me that there were these topics that I knew nothing about, but I probably had opinions about, right? Even though I had no facts, I had no knowledge. But then I would open this book and all of a sudden, in 3-4 hours, I knew a lot about the topic, right? And then if I read 4 or 5 books on the subject, man, I really knew a lot about it, right? So I love giving gifts. I love giving books as gifts. I know the staff doesn't always love it, right? But what can you do that's thoughtful and meaningful to that person? So I like to pick things that are maybe applicable to their personal life or applicable to their business life, and help augment that, right? I love personal messages, the handwritten card, the handwritten note, etc. Trips and vacations. I mean, oftentimes, the staff works hard too, right? Your team works hard too. You're certainly there every weekend and there for tournaments on the weekends and testings and all these different things, right? We have, running a martial arts school is not a 40-hour-a-week thing, right? 40 hours is like Wednesday morning, right, for us. So it's really nice to help them unwind and relax too, right? So every year, for many years in the schools, sort of at the beginning of the year, you can buy, for example, cruise tickets and things like this that are very inexpensive, relatively inexpensive. And what a nice little spiff or bonus for a staff member, right? So think a little bit out of the box on this stuff, I think. It doesn't always have to be cash in an envelope. It doesn't always have to be a check. There are lots of ways that you can do things like that. I really like toys. I like my staff to have abundant expectations and to be able to live a life of abundance and understand what some of those premium things are like. And maybe we can reward them with a nice wristwatch or a nice ink pen or a nice writing tablet or something like that, right? Something that they might not buy for themselves, but it's a nice little reward, and it doesn't necessarily have to be just a check, right? Obviously bonuses, right? Obviously money is helpful. I also like offsite experiences quite a bit. I like to take the team to have experiences together, maybe that they wouldn't do on their own, but it's great for team building and things like this. We're down here in Orlando, and obviously Disney and Universal are great assets here in Orlando. So I really love things like taking the team to do a behind-the-scenes Disney tour, or to do one of the Disney courses on leadership or management, or whatever. During those sessions, by the way, you go visit the parks too. You get to ride some rides. You have some laughs. It's great, right? So it's kind of cross purposes there. Motivational educational seminars. I like to send them to, when Tony Robbins comes to town. I'll send a bunch of them to Tony, or things like this, right? So a video game night, or go to see a movie together, or whatever. It doesn't have to be incredibly expensive, but I think it's very useful just to do things like that, to get them out of the school, build camaraderie, build community, and be able to reward kind of their effectiveness that year, right? Obviously swag and equipment and things like that. It's nice to have the nice new, school polos or button downs, or, new warm-ups or whatever. All that's all useful and nice as well, of course. So number 2 is reward. So celebrate and reward. Number 3, I think you have to take time for yourself, right? And I think you need to make sure that the staff is doing this as well. It's important to relax and recharge. We know how hard it is to run a martial arts school, right? Running any small business is like being an Olympic athlete, right? It's really like you're going out there and you're competing with the best human beings on the planet at your trade, right, or at your skill. And running a martial arts school certainly is no different. In fact, I would argue that in many ways it's a quite difficult business to operate because of its nuances and the relationships with its customers. So you've got to take time out of your couple of weeks here. And I don't care if it's an hour, 2 hours, a half a day, or 5 days, right? But you got to hit the reset button. You've got to recharge. You've got to do the things that give you energy. So I think that's something to determine, right? What are the things that give you energy, that don't take energy from you, but that add energy to your tank, right? Now, for many people, these are different things, right? Some people would love to go sit on the beach for a day. Some people would love to go, skiing, or whatever the case might be. You've got to kind of figure out what that is for yourself. I'm going to mention a couple of things here that you should be thoughtful about. But really, really dedicate some time over the break here to do the things, to engage in the things that give you energy. Something I just read about a month ago. I read a couple of books on some of the unintended psychological consequences of the social media, world we live in, YouTube and Instagram and whatever, TikTok. And one of the things that they found is that, and it was an interesting study there were a lot of data points that we should probably talk about in the future, but there was one element that I thought was particularly interesting. It hits people differently than almost any other media that we interact with. If you, for example, go see a movie and then you kind of leave the movie, you typically have an emotional experience while you're there, right? Either it's a happy movie or a sad movie or an exciting movie or whatever the case might be. But most people will leave the movie feeling like they've had an experience that had some value. Does that make sense? It's unregretted time, right? It's time that you're like, well, that was great, or it was just okay, but the popcorn was good, and whatever, right? But when you look at the consumption of social media, one of the statistics, one of the pieces of the study that I thought was very interesting is people regret the time that they spend on it so much, right? You look down at your TikTok feed or whatever the case is, and 5 minutes later you look up and 3 hours have gone by. And you're like, oh my God, what have I been doing? So you're so engaged in it at the time, but when you finally pull yourself away, it's regretted time. You regret a lot of that time, right? So that sucks energy from you. That's like an energy vampire. Now you're like, oh my God, I just wasted 2 hours that I could have been doing something productive, right? So think about those things that give you energy, and I think you got to unplug, right? You got to unplug for a while. You got to turn the phone off. You got to take the battery out of it. You got to, shut off social, even stay off the computer, right? I think like analog is sometimes the best way to do these things, right? The computer is way too many distractions. So think about the things that give you energy and the things that take energy from you, and invest time in those things that give you as much energy as you possibly can. For many people, it's family time, right? For many people, it's spending time with the family is like the number one energy creator. It just depends, right? For some people, it's nothing time. It's literally just doing nothing. Some of us are so, I hate to use the word busy, but let's use it for today. Some of us are so busy. We have so many tasks and so many objectives to accomplish that we never really stop and take a breath, right? So it is useful, I think, to just schedule out nothing time, right? And then I think it's also very useful to schedule quiet time. Now, this might not be nothing time. This might be time with a notepad or time with a Moleskine or something. But how can I eliminate distractions so that I can actually focus on the task at hand? We'll talk about some of those elements here in a few minutes. But a couple of, I believe, interesting discoveries that I've made in my own life, I've made by, sort of studying some of these elements. But one such element, which is really interesting, is about interrupting your daily pattern, interrupting your normal thought patterns. Most of human beings behave by habits, right? We create habits, and then those habits then dictate our behaviors, right? That's how we behave. Well, then that means if I want to change my behavior, I have to change the habit, don't I? When you're in the middle of the habit, you can't change it. Does that make sense? If you're like, no one quits smoking by smoking, right? It just doesn't work. You have to have a pattern interrupt. You have to have an interrupt in that normal pattern of your behavior, of your behavior, of your habit. So try different locations, right? If you're used to being in a city, go to the country, right? Go to the mountains, go to the beach, right? And opposite. One such example is if I just simply, in this office, I love this office. I get a lot accomplished here. I have a lot of things right at my disposal to be able to be hyper productive. But if I just take my laptop and literally the AMS headquarters, the Atlas mothership here, is a beautiful building that was built in 1883. It's been added and, of course, maintained and improved over time. But it's a historical landmark in Orlando. And just across the street is a nice little park with some seating and some things like that. And right in our own sort of driveway here, we have some nice little green space. We have a nice deck around the corner and some nice green space. If I just take my laptop and I just go there and sit there, for 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, It's a totally different experience, right? You don't feel all of the normal noises, the distractions that you encounter inside your normal space kind of change. It kind of goes away. And I really do like changing the pattern kind of dramatically. So for me, since I'm here in Orlando, I love to go out to the beach, or Tampa or the East Coast. Go get something on the ocean front, open up the doors, crashing waves, salty air, right? It's so different. It forces you to think differently, right? The last element I would mention on that, by the way, is there's a lot of research on this now. I think we all know this now. But if there's a way that you can get into nature, right? My family loves the mountains. They love to go to North Carolina, go to the mountains. And that's a wonderful, I've found that personally to be incredibly recharging. You get out in the middle of the woods, there's nothing out there, babbling brook over in the corner, that kind of thing. I become hyper productive under that circumstance. I could show you if I'd have to go dig through it, but about 8 or 10 of the big initiatives that we have accomplished this year here at Atlas and at AMS came from quiet nature sitting and thinking, right? So anyway, so some interesting elements there I think that you should be considerate of. You've got to take time to decompress, right? So celebrate, reward, relax, right? You got to decompress a little. Number 4, I think it's really, really cool and useful to invest in the staff. Now, I can argue both sides of the fence on this, by the way, but as many of us, some of our staff members, especially the junior staff members, are high school students or middle school students or whatever, high school students, and younger adults. As school lets out, it gives us a few days in there where we can do really cool stuff with them, right? And while I can't say that I expect them to remember everything I did right before Christmas, right? Because I think, the holidays get in the way and it kind of resets the calculator a little bit. But there are still a lot of opportunities if I have a day or two to do sort of like an intensive little mini boot camp with them, right? Both for physical training, but also business operational training. So I love to take this time and opportunity to do that. It's time that we don't have, we typically can't shut the school down for 3 or 4 days and just do intensive training, right? So one of the things I like to do is get the team together, and this kind of like coincides with the reward and the celebrate elements as well. During this little mini boot camp, we'll do some really cool experiences together, right? We might go to the escape room and do a little team building activity there. They have a boardroom at the escape room. We'll do a little meeting there. We might go rent a hotel, meeting room and do some brainstorming sessions there. We might rent a ballroom and do some physical training sessions. We might do it in the school. It just kind of depends, right? So I like to kind of do a little bit of a retraining here at the end of the year. Anything that you think the staff is doing, the minute you turn your back, they're likely doing something differently. So you want to be thoughtful about that and create checkpoints. Oftentimes we'll use it as a recruiting tool. We might invite potential staff members to come to the boot camp as well. We can use it as a recruiting element. And people who are not yet part of the leadership program will have part of a day or maybe even a full day of this boot camp where all the leadership team members can come too. And that maybe it's a half a day on a Tuesday or a half a day on a Friday or something like that, where now all of the students who just in our renewal blitz all just joined the leadership program, they can all come to this sort of special event right away. They've just enrolled, they've just upgraded. Now there's a really cool special event for them as well, if that makes any sense. So again, we can use it as a recruiting tool as well. It's really, sort of an energize and inspire time. So we absolutely do cover a lot of like material and content and how to handle, an internet lead, how to handle a phone call, how to handle a walk-in, how to handle an intro, how to handle a first introductory how to handle an enrollment conference, all the stuff that we do typically for our staff, our sort of testing, our staff curriculum cycle. We review all of that and do some hardcore training on that. But we also do a bunch of physical stuff, and we also use it as a time to inspire them, right? And a time to energize them. So new curriculum, cool things that we're going to be launching in the new year, things like that. I love to have something new that we can tease them with at the end of every year, right? So be thoughtful about that. I think it's also a very useful time. We do this more deeply with the full-time staff, but certainly even with our leadership team and our maybe non-full-time staff members, This is a great opportunity to sort of one-on-one walk through goal setting with them, and maybe in a group environment in this case, walk through their goals and objectives. What are their short, middle, and long-term goals? What are they trying to accomplish in your program and with your business and your school, right? These types of things. So thoughtful about that. Also, for especially full-time staff, as I kind of alluded to. So let's add to the mini boot camp a component for leadership members, assistant instructors, things like that. Then, as we look at our full-time staff, as I described earlier, the team is everything, right? I mean, the team is the business. Okay? If they're unmotivated, unexcited, unenergized when they go out to teach a class, how's the class going to be, right? If you want to improve your retention rate, the first place to start is what's happening with the staff on the floor, right? There are many other elements, but that's certainly one of the places that you want to look. So one of the things that I think is very important that we take personal responsibility for is working with each staff member. And again, in many cases, these are younger people, right? How are we helping them set and accomplish their goals, right? Left to their own devices, most human beings never set goals for themselves ever, because they don't want to be disappointed if they fail, or they just don't have time to deal with it, right? Whatever the excuse is. But we all know that nobody becomes a black belt just by taking it a day at a time, right? All of us earned our black belts, earned higher degrees of black belt, earned mastery, whatever the case might be, because it was a clear and present objective for us. And then we took that objective, we broke it down into intermediate objectives. We took those intermediate objectives and broke those down into short-term objectives that we can take daily action on, right? And if your staff, if these folks don't have that skill ingrained in every component of their life, we could be impacting them better, right? We could be helping them with more elements and aspects of their life than we currently are, right? Pardon me. Oh, this respiratory infection is killing me. So I think we should take responsibility for that. So I'd like to meet with each one of our full-time staff member individually, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Look at their goal planner. Where are they? What are they doing? Where are they at? What can they do to accomplish them, right? I like to break these goals down into these 7 categories, right? Career goals, financial goals, health goals, self-development goals, social goals, meaning family, relationships, etc., spiritual goals, and legacy goals. And then we break those down into long-term, we'll talk about that in a second. So I like those 7 categories, right? So we have these sheets, they have 7 categories. I like to sit down and chat with each staff member about that, right? Where are they? Where can I help them accelerate? Where can I help contribute to those accomplishments? And what do they need to do to contribute to those accomplishments, right? Next, I think I might be just talking to myself here, right? But as a leader, as business operator, we understand the nuances and the difficulties of operating the business day to day, and we understand how pedantically detailed we want to be about it. And it's hard for us to let go. It's hard for us to delegate responsibility and authority to our team. Oftentimes, we make the excuse that they're not ready, or that they don't have the skill, or that they don't have the aptitude, right? Well, whose fault is that, right? That's your fault. So I know many times, nope, you are hitting it home. Tina says, maybe I'm not just talking about me. Maybe there are other people that have the same dysfunction, but I appreciate the feedback, Tina. It's hard to let go, right? And what you've got to do, I believe, is as you feel that pain, I don't think you drop things on people who are unprepared, right? But as you feel that pain of letting go, you've got to analyze why. And by the way, you're the answer to that problem, right? You need to train them. You need to prepare them. You need to make sure that they're ready to handle that responsibility, that they're ready to handle that duty or that task, right? So that does kind of fall back on you, doesn't it? But one of the things that I've learned over my own life, and in fact here in this building, we've had lots of growth in this area, where it's critical that we invest in their development and growth. Does that make sense? We are responsible for the outcome, for their outcomes. So delegate more, right? Prepare them and delegate more, especially areas where they're better than you are, right? An example I would use on this, by the way, would be, and I think this is pretty common in the industry. I think people do kind of understand this, much better now than we did 20 years ago, 25 years ago. But for example, I'm not the best, tiny tiger instructor on the planet, right? I'm pretty good. I'm a pretty good instructor. I believe I'm a pretty good instructor. But, do you really want the, an example would be, would you really want the, 6'4", 240 pound, killer fighter to be teaching the tiny tiger class, right? No, I don't know. Maybe that guy might be a cartoon character. You never know, right? But in oftentimes, there are other instructors who are far better at teaching that class than I am, because they're more relatable to the student, or they're more, energetic or charismatic, or whatever the case might be, right? So you've got to understand that you don't have to be the only answer, right? You are the answer. It's to prepare them to be the answer, right? Like I said earlier, just take personal responsibility for their success in these areas, and mentor them, right? They came to you as a white belt or a green belt or whatever the case might be. They came to you as 5 years old or 20 years old, whatever the case is, and that they're still with you for a reason. They respect your opinion. They respect your vision. They respect how you see the world. Don't shirk that responsibility, right? Number next, planning. So, obviously, at the end of the year here, we have a few days. Sometimes we have a week or two that we can invest in some real kind of clear-eyed planning, what 2025 looks like. Let's go back a minute here and talk about our goals we just talked about a minute ago. I didn't change the date here. Like I said, I like those seven goal categories: career, financial, health, self-development, social, let's call it, spiritual, and legacy. I like those 7 categories. And then I like to take those 7 categories and break them down into 6 time frames: 1-year goals, 5-year goals, 10-year goals, 20-year goals, 50-year goals, and legacy goals. And for the staff, 50 years, is not unreasonable at all, right? In many cases. So those 6 time frames. So we have all 7 categories, and then we have 6 columns, 6 time frames for them to be able to sort of plot where they want to be. Where do you want to be on your career? Where do they want to be financially? Where do they want to be with their health, etc. And then we help them in the process of breaking those things down into those time thresholds, and then we help plot for them daily actions. So anyway, I think that's part of number 1 for yourself, right? Do this for yourself. Take the time to do it, right? It's not. We all say it. We all did it when we were earning our black belt. Maybe we didn't write it down. Most of us did, but maybe some of us didn't write it down. Maybe some of us didn't break it down physically on paper. But if you do, it's a huge lever, right? So pretty important there. There's a zero-based thinking concept that I just love, and I use all the time. And, we call it like the blank legal pad, right? So zero-based thinking, obviously, is a quick review. I'm sure everybody knows, but as a quick review, zero-based thinking basically just means, imagining that you had to do it all over again, right? If you had to start from zero, what would you do differently, right? What would you fix? What would you do? What would you not do, right? So for me, the blank legal pad is kind of like a great trigger for that. Start with a blank white sheet of paper and say to yourself, today, what do I want the school to look like in 50 years? What do I want that to look like? What do I want the organization to look like? And literally, draw it out and then reverse engineer that, right? How do you reverse engineer that for the next 50 years? It's an incredibly powerful tool, I think, for me. It gets me out of the day-to-day operational thinking of the crisis of the moment and the challenge that this client is having and the challenge that we're having over there, and that's how we all kind of live. It's almost like you're in a battle, right? It's almost like you're in a trench in World War II, and you've got these bullets flying by you from every direction. You just have, right? You get so mired in all of the daily details. It's really, really useful to like fly to Paris, right? And just relax and think about, okay, if I wasn't under this, this inundation of constant task and activity, what should this thing really look like? How can we get it there, right? So I think that's a really useful tool I used a lot. I'd really like to review what worked last year and figure out how to do more of it, right? What were the 10 big wins last year? What were the 10 most effective? In our marketing plans, we always track the results of our marketing. In Atlas Martial Arts software, you can track what the most common student sources were, what the highest conversion rates were on different sources, things like that. So take a look at that. Go back and research like, hey, what were the things that worked the best this last year, the last couple of years? How do we do more of that? And the opposite, review what didn't work, right? What worked least best? And how do I either fix it or kill it, right? Sometimes marketing is usually a pretty easy way to track that, but I really like to do the same thing with curriculum and all the things that we're doing in the school, all the operational components, the curriculum, the leadership team development, all of those things. What are the things that are working well? And I got to tell you, you may not like to hear this, but I think in our mini staff boot camp, one of the things you should be doing is asking them too, right? I might be making that too overly dramatic, but oftentimes we again bring all of this onto ourselves, and we think that we take responsibility. Let's say it. Let's put a positive spin on it, which is great. But also don't forget that you have other observers out there, right? All of your staff members, all of your volunteers, parents will even help you with this. Families will even help you with this. Adult students will help you with this. Hey, what are the 3 things that you liked most last year? What are the 3 things that you got the most value from last year? What are the 3 things, you know what I'm saying? So take a nice review of the year. I think it's very useful and very, very valuable, right? It's very valuable to get a bunch of opinions on this stuff. You have to do it in the right way, right? You're not trying to invite a bitch session or something like that, but you get the idea. Innovation and development, I always like, obviously, with what we do here at AMS and with Atlas Martial Arts Software, we're always innovating. Every day, we're building new features and new elements and things like this every day. But I think it's really useful, again, at the end of the year to say, okay, well, let's look at that 1, 5, 10, 20, 50 year. What peaks are we going to have to hit along that path, right? That we can plan for now, right? That we can be innovating today for, right? And then systemize. I think it's critically important that wherever humanly possible, there's a procedure in place. This is how we do this thing every time, right? My intro script, my school tour, my enrollment conference, all of these things should really be very highly structured. Certainly the executing team member has flexibility in areas, right? But there are other areas where I don't want them to have flexibility. I want them to execute these things exactly the same every time. And therefore we can measure it, and we can improve those areas. If everybody's doing something different every time, you can never measure, you really never know where to improve things, right? So, for me, this is part of my plan and strategize outline. So hopefully that's a useful tool. Pardon me again. Gosh. Okay. Number next, and for me, this is incredibly valuable, and it was a big deal. Keep the main thing the main thing. There's a little video I always play for my team and for other folks from Steve Covey. It's the Big Rocks experiment. Just go to YouTube and look up Steve Covey Big Rocks, right? And the drill is very common. I'm sure you've all seen it, but you have all these big rocks in your life, and they're all labeled, and they're things like spending time with family, taking vacations, all these big rocks in your life. And then there are all these little pebbles, and there's all this sand. And the lesson here is, if you put the sand in first, which is all the ephemera, all the crap we have to deal with, and then you put the pebbles in, you end up in a scenario where the big rocks aren't going to all fit. You got to choose which of these big rocks you're going to fit into the bucket. But if you put the big rocks in first, Then you layer in the pebbles. The pebbles tend to fall in the cracks and fill all the gaps and stuff, right? And they don't take any more net volume, any more net constrained volume, right? They fill the volume. And the same with the sand. You dump the sand in last, and it tends to do the same thing. So you're able to fit a lot more in the same container. It's just about priorities. It's about how do we address them, right? And so, keeping the main thing is incredibly important. What are the things that are the most important to your school? The first thing I would say is this. I think you should recommit to the role of being the CEO of your company. Now, I know that many of us are CEOs with a bunch of other responsibilities, right? A bunch of us are CEOs with the responsibility of teaching classes, with the responsibility of doing enrollment conferences, with the responsibility of doing all the frontline stuff, right? But there's two elements of that. One is, if those are the tasks that you're doing, that means you haven't prepared somebody else to do it yet, right? Or prepared them adequately. So that's something you should focus on as the CEO, right? The second element is something called focus creep, right? Again, it's the bullets flying by as I take cover in the trench, right? Oftentimes we get diverted throughout the year on, we set our course in January, but then by May it kind of looked like that, and then by August it was kind of like that, and then, right? So really useful to sort of recommit to that idea. You are the CEO, you're the director of the organization. Your responsibility is preparing everyone else to execute your vision. There are four things that are the most important, right? Enrollments, renewals, retention, quality. That's it. Those are the big rocks, right? Those are the things that should consume the bulk of your attention and time. Everything that you're doing that's not those things, we should figure out how to automate, delegate, outsource, or just kill, right? Enrollments, renewals, retention, meaning upgrades or retention. Enrollments, renewals, meaning upgrades or renewals, retention, and student quality. Those are the four things to be focused on, right? So here's where we're talking about marketing, selling, and the first experiences for our prospects and students. Renewals and upgrades, we're talking about the quality on the floor. How engaging are they on the floor? How engaging are classes? How excited are students to upgrade or to move up their memberships? Retention is how excited are they to stay a student forever? And then student quality is about, the quality of their results. So those are the four things. Everything else stays off the plate for a little while, right? We focus on these things over this planning, over this preparation time. And again, like I said earlier, systemize everything. Always try to major in the majors. This is your objective. And as we've described in many previous sessions, if you can fill 40 hours a week with $500 an hour activity, that's $1 million a year. So how can you do that? What are the things that you can invest your 40 hours in that generate $500 an hour activity? And one of the things you should be thinking about is leverage, meaning preparing other people to do the $10 an hour tasks, the $20 an hour tasks, the $50 an hour tasks, right? So take all that for what it's worth. Now, we do have a few tools, obviously, with our Atlas Martial Arts software clients to help you in a bunch of these areas. So when we're talking about enrollments, we're talking about marketing generation, generating the marketing plan for next year. Obviously, if you go to the MA Biz Academy inside your Atlas Martial Arts software, tons of tools for the new year and beyond for helping you prepare for that. Also, this is just for example. These are just a couple of our winter campaigns for right now. Also, atlasmarketingstudio.app is available as well for all of our clients to be able to build your own custom stuff, right? We provide amazing templates that you can go in and change anything that you want to in there. It's very, very, very useful. And it's like super simple too. It's like far easier than Photoshop, right? And you already start with something that's 99% of the way done, and you can just go in and customize and make it your own. So those are a couple of tools I think that are helpful for our folks. Not to forget about. Number next. I don't know if this is 6. I don't remember if this is 5 or 6, but it's either the 5th or the 6th point today. Personal growth. So, pardon me again. Gosh, like I said earlier, it's like critically important for us to focus on ourselves a little bit during this time. Anytime, resting and recharging and relaxing is critically important. One of the things that tends to give you energy is growth, right? We all know when we walk out of a martial arts classroom and we just learned something cool, or we've just improved something, we feel great, right? That's a fundamental human need for growth, a fundamental human need for progress. And so I think it's really important to kind of push yourself, especially these last couple of weeks of the year, push yourself to do some growth, right? I have some rituals around this personally myself. Here it is. Here's a couple of them. So as you develop your growth muscle, we've all done it in martial arts, right? We become more and more excited, more and more energetic, more and more unstoppable in our quest, right? It's the people who just don't ever do anything for themselves, for their own growth and development, who just stagnate, right? So one of the things I love to do is I have a selection of of things that I love to reread every year. And sometimes I do every other year with that, and I rotate them every other year, whatever the case is. But there's some things that I just love to reconsume. Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within, right? West Point Way of Leadership by Larry Donathorn. There are a few that I just love, and they're so inspiring and so energetic. They give me so much energy, right? So I love doing it every year. And I also then expand a few. I do some new ones, right? I've actually just a wonderful mentor of mine actually just sent me three new books about a week ago that I'm going to go ahead and dissect over the break as well. But review podcasts, watch videos, listen to MP3s, whatever it is that for me personally, for me it's all nonfiction. It's all business related. It's about what I'm doing or what I'm trying, where I'm going, right? Personal development, personal growth, personal psychological management, these types of things. The other element that I would suggest that I just absolutely love, it's a tool that I've used for years and years and years and years, a piece of technology that I've learned for years that actually Tony talks about a lot, called Net Time, right? NET, no extra time, right? And for me, for example, in the morning getting ready for work, right? There's, a shower and a this and a that, and I might have maybe 40 minutes or 50 minutes, maybe an hour in the morning every morning that I'm just not doing anything, right? So constantly I'll be playing an audiobook or have an audio podcast on or a video podcast or whatever the case might be. When I'm driving, I have about an hour commute, right? That's an hour that I'm not doing anything, right? So I'll have something educational, something inspiring, playing, whether it's an audiobook or a course or whatever the case is. I have so many credits for courses that I've taken over the years. I have like 11 degrees or something like that. But things like that are really, for me, very inspiring, right? So that growth, executing against my own growth, for me is one of the most inspiring things I ever do, right? So think about that. Invest in yourself, read, do the things that give you energy and that inspire your growth. Does that make sense? So, sometimes, again, if we're dealing with younger staff members, right? Younger staff members, oftentimes we sort of get a little stuck where, they're so far behind us, so to speak, in the personal development and personal growth area that we stop pushing ourselves to move forward. Does that make sense? Because they aren't going to be able to consume all of it, right? So we got plenty, that kind of a thing. But I think the reality is the opposite. I think you need to push yourself even harder, right? That's where we really need to be, become absolute experts in the areas of our responsibility. How to become absolute experts in developing enrollments, renewals, retention, quality, developing the staff it takes us to get there, right? So food for thought on that. So those are our 6 lessons for the day. Number 1, celebrate. Number 2, reward. Number 3, rest, decompress, recharge. Number 4, develop the staff. Number 5, plan and strategize for 2025 and beyond. And number 6, invest in yourself. Invest in your own development, right? Go to a seminar, right? Go to a business event. Enroll in a course, take a class, whatever the case might be. But I've always, probably one of the most exciting things I can remember, I took a Harvard course available on their extension school, and it kicked my butt. I'm not going to lie. But man, I learned so much in 10 weeks. It was incredible, right? I couldn't believe it. So things like this are available to you. They're open and you have access to them. you really want to kind of leverage that opportunity to invest in yourself, certainly because it's going to pay dividends in your team and in your business, but it might just motivate you, that extra little bit that you need to help carry everybody else across the finish line on their goals, right? So those were kind of our 6 lessons for the day. Obviously, as you well know, all of our Atlas Marshall software clients, we have a bunch of tools available for you to help you with this, with your marketing plan, to manage and monitor and manage your retention rates, to give you insight onto what's happening with your curriculum, things like this, and also to give you some really good tools to help with student retention over time. So please take a look at all those tools that are available for you. If you have any questions or anything I can help you answer, we'll pop over to the chat here. I think we've accomplished most of those elements already. Yep, looks like. So if anybody needs anything, please let me know. AMS will be closed on Christmas Day and on New Year's Day, but we're open otherwise. So if there's anything anybody else needs, please feel free to drop a comment in the chat area, send us an email, or give us a call here at Atlas headquarters, AMS headquarters, and we'll be happy to help from there. Okay? Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time. Speak soon. Have a great new year. Happy holidays. I hope to see you in the new year. By the way, we actually do have an event tour scheduled for next year. We'll be coming to a bunch of cities around the country, so we may be coming somewhere near you. Let our team here know, and we'll be happy to reach out and maybe chat, have a visit, and have you come to our events. So thanks much, everybody. Speak soon. Thanks, everybody.